January 15th, 2019. So I am a couple things going on. Um, Sunday, I went on a long hike for the first time in a while. I used to do this. This used to be my life, like hiking every single day. Um, and then at some point, I decided that uh, more efficiency in my exercising would be good. It's just sort of a change in energy. But what I noticed with doing a 4-hour hike um, is the completeness of that. And of course, I've been also realizing the completeness in speaking truthfully. So there's some kind of dance that I'm finding for myself between silence and speaking, listening and making sound. And it's definitely some kind of a dynamic um, tension, dance, balance, whatever the word is, because it's not finding the ultimate solution, like, oh, I should be more silent in general, or oh, I should speak more in general. It's just noticing the differences. Sometimes it's really good to have an entire day or more of just no thinking and just being. But I also notice it's, there's some, at some point, we're asked, we're asked to engage in this world with thought. Um, so the other difference that I'm noticing um, is the difference between my computer brain, like slash screen brain, the brain that interacts with a screen of any kind, whether it's my phone or the computer, versus that clear mind that's generating ideas and forming things, sort of the imaginative mind, um, which for me often involves words, images, images and words, mainly starting with images of an idea even comes to me as an image, and then trying to use words to give it form sometimes, and colors, and then some shapes and objects. So that's where the visual component comes in. And then it's very eclectic. So there's where the collage and the mixed media come in. So I'm still in this process of like trying to weave what's happening for me now, which is this kind of full bore interest in creating solo performance, dealing with all the feelings for me that come up with that, which is, I worry about being too much of a performer, not being relational enough, and I get really mad when I'm trying to make myself into some better version of that. Like, oh, I should be more relational. Like, I shouldn't take up all that space on the stage and be a monologuist, because I should just be listening to people and interacting with them more. And who's perfect at that, right? Is there anybody that's perfect at it? So I'm trying to like let that uh, aspiring part of myself kind of be a little bit quieter, and try not to compare myself to others. But of course, when I see examples of people who are not great at relating and still are on screen and taking up space and being in the world with confidence, I kind of am like, why do I feel apologetic about exactly where I am now and what I'm doing? And that last point is probably the biggest thing that I'm really looking at right now because I'm consciously just stepping through that. The fear that if I actually reveal what's true inside, the fear is that everyone will go away. Everyone will run away in horror, thinking that I'm a mess, I'm going nowhere, I have no idea what I'm doing, what a waste, all of these sort of annihilating conclusions about my worth as in general as a person. And so that is what's happening. And it's really helpful to just even name that right now because when I'm not speaking, when I don't have this performance space, even right here, knowing somebody's going to see this and just hearing it come out of my own mouth, I have these other sort of covert strategies that I do to try to make up for that sense of worthlessness. Like I'll go try to get a job, do something totally new where nobody knows me and I can just kind of slip in and get by. And yeah, I do that. um and it doesn't even occur to me that that's what's happening. I'm totally convinced that that's what I need to do. So that just confirmed to me that even a tiny bit of this practice of speaking and processing out loud for me just does shift something. That there's a realization that, oh, yeah, I'm not speaking. I kind of get quiet, find another route, escaping out the back door so I can hide, um, because that part of me believes I have to hide. And then I question everything else. And so that's why tonight is my class at the Marsh. It's morning right now, so I'm not going to record something after the class. Maybe I will. Maybe it'll be after midnight. I'll do that. But tonight's the class and that little meeting, it's like my recovery group, really, for me personally, because it's people who are not going to be judging me, at least out loud. They can have their own internal judgments of me. Um, but everybody's showing themselves. There's no audience because we're all creators and we're witnessing each other as we each create. And that's a powerful dynamic. And maybe that's another aspect that somehow when I'm on my screen, um, I'm very conscious of the world, kind of that whatever that stage that's set up by social media, um, that the world is this audience that's there clapping or reacting, like, love, wow, sad, angry, right? The new Facebook world. And it's even though it's an illusion and we know that it's an illusion, I just wonder for people that are on there all the time, their brains everybody's brain is different, but I wonder how many people's brains are like mine, where even though we know it's this virtual reality, it takes up residence inside us as another reality. So we believe we feel and register somewhere inside that these reactions are real. Um, and it can be a replacement for a reality that we don't have. And I don't want that. Actually, that's what I'm resisting, um, in my life. And for me, it requires a lot of work to create that alternative to the virtual reality. One of the things I've done is I've taken Instagram. I've deleted the Instagram app off of my phone. And I think I've mentioned this before. And now I think a week into that. And it's been really, I'm actually 10 days into it. Um, it's been really great for me and amazing to notice that as soon as I deleted that off my phone, there was like 2 days where I saw myself kind of ghosting back with my finger to the corner where that icon used to be. But at this point, that habit has been extinguished, which is encouraging. It wasn't, didn't take that much. And I do not miss those few minutes of scrolling through pictures to see what these other strangers somewhere in the world are doing that I'm not, and how great it is that they're doing it, and how I need to be doing more. Um, and it's kind of an experiment for me to see, what will I create? What will I become? What will I choose when I choose focus on um, what matters and what resonates with me interacting in my world, whatever that may be. I mean, it might be pathetic. It might be not that impressive to others. And that's something that I haven't tried before as a way of being, that I'm very tuned in to what is impressive to others. Because I think it grew up where this whole culture was supposed to fulfill a big promise. And so everything that everyone else was doing, I became fascinated with because they had something that I had to decode and figure out, and that was valid. They were the valid people in the world, in this culture, from the point of view of daughter of immigrants who didn't have a claim on this place. They were sort of borrowing this place and contributing and trying to keep up in a way. And so growing up with that perspective of everyone out there, whether it's on a screen, in a school, or in any kind of place, had it figured out. That kind of points to me to why my music was such an important keystone for me in that tiny little world, because it was my little way of having some attention on me that wasn't negative, like you're an outsider, you're not athletic enough, you're not blonde enough, you're not tall enough, you're not, knowledgeable enough really about the cultural codes. I was always sort of playing catch up and being very, very receptive to signals to the extent I could. But music kind of did give me that little tiny place where maybe I could be seen. Maybe if I worked hard enough, I really had to be perfect. So it's taken me, I'm reading, I did read some work by some young kind of 20 something Asian Americans who have their Ivy League educations and are pursuing comedy writing and performing in New York. And it's very encouraging to see that it's coming 25 years later. It's coming more quickly. Like they've worked through identity issues earlier in life and can just come out and start working on developing their voice. And it doesn't take 25 years or a lifetime of silence anymore. And so that's exciting to see that finally that evolution is happening, where there's a wave of people slowly. Because going back to, being impressed by others and having to sort of carve out a tiny place where like I might be noticed. It was never for, my music was always imitation and getting someone else's work perfectly interpreted as much as I could, which I never could do, right? It could never be achieved. So it was always I knew I was never good enough. And everyone knew that because who is? But that's the whole world of classical music is nobody's good enough, but we're all just sort of apologetically trying our best, but believing that we can win. I mean, um, and um, and of course that a lot of the essence of the experience of music is lost in that. But the fact that so much of my energy was put into that kind of imitation and aspiration is a totally different mindset and brain chemistry than trying to find this organic voice that comes from, yes, putting that voice out there in relationship to witnesses and taking in the kind of coaching that nurtures that. And that's another thing I feel that I've been honing, cultivating, and learning for at least 10 years, but more like ever since I defiantly stepped off the path of medical training and, started consciously ignoring people's bad advice. And that has been so slow for me. I have not, you know, it seems like it's been so slow for me to ignore bad advice and to really, really touch into what's really happening for me. Like when I don't listen to anybody's bad advice, what do I end up doing? What is my natural tendency when I'm not in fear and not driven by shame and hiding? How do I show up in all my best ways? And that is such an interesting exploration because I still um, discovered that in the context of learning, teachers, classes, workshops, trainings, modalities. It's all been in those contexts. I don't have a lot of worlds where I step in and, hang out at bars and just start, striking up conversations with people to form connections and figure out who I am. It's very much from this um, solitary learner kind of place. And of course, that's not something that's valued in the culture. It's like I'm starting to find those people who are writers and artists and thinkers, and even people like even some athletes, um, solo athletes like Alex Honnold in Free Solo. It's a very like he was searching for this solitary practice, and he found this challenge that was big enough. And so just to reiterate for myself, the revelation of today's speaking is that sometimes when I'm silent and I retreat into myself, sometimes it's like taking a hike, which is a great cleanse and a break for the thinking mind. And other times it's out of a sense of shame and hiding and needing to find an escape route um, rather than showing up in the reality of this human experience in this moment being my own. So, and I'm going to say for myself that I'm going to repeat this quote from last week's class. That's a whole week ago. A class at the marsh where it was trust that when you speak your truth, you are speaking a truth much larger than your own.